I'm not overly happy about the announcement we're about to make. The reality is we shouldn't be having to make this announcement. I think far too many people in this room and indeed around the country are trying to forget as much as they can about the Harper years when we had a government that cut services for the most vulnerable any chance it could. The worst example of that was definitely when they chose to cut health care for refugees, the most vulnerable people we could imagine in our country, being brushed aside by a government that was more focused on pinching pennies and balancing the books than actually helping the most vulnerable. So the fact that we have to be here today to recognize that yet another Conservative government, the government of Doug Ford, is walking away from services to the most vulnerable is really frustrating for me, and I think for all Canadians, that we keep moving back, or there's Conservative politicians that keep trying to move us back and make the most vulnerable hurt for decisions that they make. And Conservative politicians like to say they're for the people, but then they end up cutting services for the most vulnerable. It's what they do. The responsibility over legal aid on immigration and refugees has long been a joint responsibility, a shared responsibility by the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. And for many years, the Government of Ontario was a strong and proud partner in making sure that our most vulnerable refugees had the basic services they need, particularly in terms of legal aid when they arrive in a situation that is fraught with challenges and indeed vulnerabilities. But the Ford government decided to step away from that. And that's why, in this area of shared responsibility, the federal government is choosing to step up. We will be investing $26.8 million this year to ensure that legal aid services for immigrants and refugees continue in the province of Ontario. We will also be topping up investments in other provinces to reach the 100% funding mark for legal aid to immigrants and refugees. But we will engage in reflections and conversations in the coming year about how to ensure long-term sustainability for legal aid for refugees and immigrants. And we will work very hard, like I know many Ontarians will, to make sure that this Ontario government understands that you cannot continue to harm vulnerable people and pretend that you are actually for the people.